Hello, Sky Lovers. Welcome to the second episode of our series named The True Beginning of General Aviation. And guys, if you've missed our first episode, I highly recommend watching it to fully grasp the fascinating journey we've embarked on. Now, before we dive into this section, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the initial episode. That's the first episode of this section. So guys, share your insights and let's continue this captivating exploration together. And without any further ado, let's get started. Imagine stepping back to ancient times, around the 1st century AD in China, where the roots of vertical flights began with a fascinating toy, the Bamboo-Copter. This ancient marvel is no ordinary plaything, as it involves a rotor attached to a spindle, spun by rolling a stick, and as the rotor twirls, it creates lift, and when released, the Bamboo-Copter takes a brief flight. The idea of using rotors for flight wasn't limited to China. Fast forward to 14th century Europe, where similar concepts emerged, the Moliner Annois or rotor on a knot, along with string pull toys featuring 4 blades that made their appearance. It's a captivating journey through time, where the simple toy of a spinning rotor hints at the incredible possibilities that would unfold in the world of aviation. Guys, does this sound familiar to you? Well, it's kinda does to me, and I even go as far as saying that this is where the concept of vertical flight like helicopters might have made its early beginnings. And what do you think? So let me hear your answers in the comment section below. And guys, let's continue to dive into the fascinating world of ancient inventions and see where the roots of our modern marvels might have sprouted. And guys, we'll move on to another era of steam-powered wooden pigeon. Between 400 and 350 BC, the ancient Greek mathematician Archytas of Tarentum reportedly created a steam-powered pigeon model. The steam-powered wooden pigeon is attributed to him, and it is described as an early attempt at a mechanical flying device. This invention, driven by steam propulsion, is considered one of the earliest recorded instances of a mechanical flying machine in history, and it was a breakthrough in artificially replicating the art of flight. According to Alus, the ancient Greek philosopher, mathematician, astronomer, statesman, and strategist, Archytas was reputed to have designed and built the first artificial self-propelled flying device, said to have flown some 200 meters around 400 BC. And guys, let's look at how this steam-powered wooden pigeon works. The front of the object was pointed like a bird's beak. The structural shape was very aerodynamic for maximum flying distance and speed. The rear of the flying pigeon had an opening that led to the internal bladder. This opening was connected to a heated airtight boiler. As the boiler created more and more steam, the pressure of the steam eventually exceeded the mechanical resistance of the connection, and the flying pigeon took flight. The flight continued for several hundred meters, that's 200 meters. The flying pigeon is sometimes referred to as the first robot. And guys, what this is simply saying is that inside the pigeon is made of a bladder, and that the pigeon sits on a boiling pot of water which develops steam pressure. The steam goes from the pot to the bladder of the pigeon. There is a mechanical connection between the bladder and the boiling pot, so once the steam pressure overcame the resistance of that mechanical connection, then the pigeon would take off and fly. It's worth noting that the pigeon used the action-reaction principle, that's the Newton's third law of motion, which is not stated as a scientific law until the 17th century. This served as an inspiration for rockets and other aircraft as they all adhered to the action-reaction principle. And guys, the action-reaction principle, like I said earlier, also known as the Newton's third law of motion, states that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Like that, in simple terms, it means that if one object exerts a force on another object, the second object exerts a force of the same magnitude but in the opposite direction. Guys, we move on to the era of hot air balloons. Imagine ancient China, where they already grasped the idea that hot air rises. They took this simple principle and turned it into something magical that's the sky lantern. Picture a paper balloon with a small lamp inside, launch into the night sky for pure joy or during lively festivals. According to the awesome historian Joseph Needham, the Chinese rocketed sky lanterns as early as the 3rd century BC. But here is a twist: they weren't just for fun. General Zhu Liang, a legend, supposedly used them in the military to spook the enemy troops, and thus he used them, that's the sky lanterns, to scare enemy troops. And there's also an evidence that the Chinese also solved the problem of aerial navigation using balloons hundreds of years before the 18th century. I think that's the era where the Montgolfier brothers began experimenting on balloons in France. And guys, we'll get to that in our next video, where we'll talk about lighter than air and heavier than air aircrafts. That's where the Montgolfier brothers, the Wright brothers, and the dirigibles and stuff. So guys, don't forget to stay tuned. And guys, once again, if you're enjoying the content, please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button, because your support means a lot. Finally, in today's episode, we'll talk about the Renaissance era, where we'll have some other visionaries like Da Vinci and Roger Bacon who lived during this era. The Renaissance, meaning rebirth in French, was a cultural and artistic revival in Europe from the 14th to 17th century. It marked the start of a new era of art, blending classical Greek and Roman influences with modern techniques in art and learning. So guys, let's talk about the Renaissance era. Eventually, after Ibn Sina's construction, some investigators began to discover and define some of the basics of rational aircraft designs. And guys, I shared the insights about Ibn Sina and his impact on aviation in the previous episode. So if you've missed the first video, I highly recommend checking it out for the full story and a better understanding. Your aviation journey will be more complete with the background from the initial episode. So guys, you can go back to that first episode and watch the video. Power designs were still driven by manpower or used a metal spring. In his 1250 book of Secrets of Art and Nature, the Englishman Roger Bacon predicted future designs for a balloon filled with an unspecified ether. The concept of ether was often associated with the substance thought to fill the region of the universe above the terrestrial sphere, as well as man-powered Ornithopter, claiming to know someone who had invented the latter, that's the Ornithopter. I guess he was maybe referring to Ibn Sina. Most notable of the Renaissance was Leonardo da Vinci, although his works remained unknown until 1797, and so had no influence on development over the next 300 years. While his designs are rational, they are not scientific. He particularly underestimated the amount of power that would be needed to propel a flying object, basing his design on the flapping wings of a bird rather than an engine-powered propeller. So guys, let's talk about Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was an Italian polymath who lived during the Renaissance from 1452 to 1519, and his aviation-related sketches date to the late 15th century. Leonardo da Vinci studied bird flight for many years, analyzing it rationally and anticipating many principles of aerodynamics. He understood that an object offers as much resistance to the air as the air does to the object, anticipating Isaac Newton's third law of motion, published in 1687. From the last year of the 15th century onward, Leonardo wrote about and sketched many designs for flying machines and mechanisms, including ornithopters, fixed-wing gliders, rotorcraft, and parachutes. His early designs were man-powered types, including rotorcraft and ornithopters, improving on Bacon's proposal by adding a stabilizing tail. He eventually came to realize the impracticality of this and turned to controlled gliding flight, also sketching some designs powered by a spring. In 1488, Leonardo drew a hand glider design in which the inner parts of the wings are fixed and some control surfaces are provided onwards the tip, as in the gliding flight of birds. His drawings survive and are deemed flight-worthy in principle, but he never flew in such a craft. In an essay titled to Volo, and that's, I think the meaning is on flight, he described a flying machine called the Bird, which he built from scratched lining, leather joints, and raw silk tongues. In the Codex Atlanticus, he wrote tomorrow morning, on the 2nd day of January 1496, I will make the tongue and the attempt. Some of Leonardo's other designs, such as the 4-person area screw, similar to a helicopter, have several flaws. He drew and wrote about a design for an ornithopter around 1490, but Leonardo's work remained unknown until 1797, and so had no influence on development over the next 300 years, nor were his designs based on particularly good science. Few figures in history had more detailed ideas, theories, and imaginings on aviation as the Italian artist and inventor Leonardo da Vinci. His book Codex on the Flight of Birds contains thousands of notes and hundreds of sketches on the nature of flight and aerodynamic principles that would lay much of the early groundwork for and greatly influenced the development of aviation and man-made aircraft. I guess this is why a lot of people talk about Da Vinci anytime it comes to the history behind aviation. And guys, the Ornithopter flying machine was never actually created. It was a design that Leonardo da Vinci created to show how man could fly. Sources across the world made us believe that the modern day helicopter is based on this concept. And I guess the idea of this ornithopter led to the development of small-scale ornithopter prototypes for various applications such as surveillance and environmental monitoring. Guys, we have the Pasarolla Airship. In 1709, Brazilian Portuguese priest Bartolomeu de Guzmão presented King João V of Portugal with a petition requesting the king's favor in constructing an airship called Pasarolla. The Pasarolla airship never flew, but the design was an inspiration to future aircraft designers. And guys, we have other attempts at flight. In 1496, a man named Shakespeare broke both arms in Nuremberg while attempting flight. In 1507, John Damian strapped on wings covered with chicken feathers and jumped off the wall of Stirling Castle in Scotland, breaking his thigh. He later blamed it on not using eagle's feathers. The earliest report of an attempted jet flight dates back to the Ottoman Empire. In 1633, the aviator Lagari Hassan Chelebi reportedly used a cone-shaped rocket to make the first attempt at a jet flight. Oh wow. So for people who think that the Wright brothers pioneered aviation, what do you think? Let me know your answers in the comment section. For me, I would say that the Wright brothers may have invented the first motorized aircraft, that's aircraft that made use of engines, but the 9th century engineer Abbas ibn Finas is considered to be the first human to fly with the help of a pair of wings, bits of silk, wood, and real feathers. We will see about the Wright brothers in some space videos, so guys, stay tuned. And when it comes to the practicality of flying, the first experiment where an object flew in the air was in fact carried by two Chinese philosophers, Mozi and Luban, who are also said to be the inventors behind the kite. As a result of their pioneering ways in the 5th century, they were able to gather military intelligence from rival kingdoms. That said, Ibn Finas is still considered to be the forefront of his field, given that he was the first aviator to fly with a heavier than air aircraft. And guys, don't forget to talk about heavier than air aircraft in subsequent videos. So subscribe if you are enjoying the content and if you want to know more about the history behind aviation. Finally, we can say that the idea of mechanical flying machines can also be traced back to the Renaissance visionary Leonardo da Vinci, aside from the steam-powered wooden pigeon by architects. So guys, going through this list in a chronological order, we say that the Chinese hot air balloon known as the Sky Lantern, which dates back to ancient times, 3rd century, was the first. Second is the Bamboo-Copter, third is the steam-powered wooden pigeon by ancient Greek mathematician architects of Tarentum. That's around the 4th century. Fourth is the Chinese kites. That's around the 5th century. Fifth is Abbas ibn Finas, 9th century. We have Emir of Memsbury, which is the 6th, and that's around 11th century. We have Leonardo da Vinci, that's around 15th to 16th century. And lastly, which is the 8th, we have the Pasarolla Airship, that's around 11th century. Wow, what an aviation wonder. So guys, this is a takeaway for the both episode. That's the first episode and second episode of this series. And that's, don't forget the word aviation and its meaning. Anytime you hear the word aviation, tell yourself that I was born to be free and fly like a bird. We went back to history because we said that we are one way or the other interconnected to our past. So guys, never neglect your past mistakes, but learn from them. Learn from Ibn Finas. He never neglected his mistakes, but rather improved on them, which paved the way for investigators to discover and define some of the basics of professional aircraft design. So guys, if you enjoyed the content so far, consider subscribing to our channel for more engaging topics. If it wasn't quite what you are looking for, still subscribe. Stay in the loop for continuous learning, because the journey of discovery never stops, and your subscription keeps the adventure alive. So thank you once again, sky lovers, for joining us today. In our next video, we'll explore lighter than air aircraft and focus on pioneers of that era, such as the renowned Montgolfier brothers, who gained widespread recognition. See you in the next episode.